Welcome to If Only You Knew, where each week we take a deep dive into the careers and experiences of people from different backgrounds, cultures, countries, and ages to discuss pivotal moments in their lives and the lessons they have learnt along the way.
If they told people the truth, they wouldn't last very long.
Whether you're a school student in an established career, mapping your academic pathway, searching for the perfect career, looking to change careers, or just plain curious, then this podcast is for you. I'm your host, Christy McCormack, and I want to ask you, what would you do differently if only you knew? Joining me today, all the way from Dubai, is Dima Istanbuli. Dima worked as an architect for 20 years between Beirut, Sydney, and Dubai before hitting rock bottom and making a significant career and lifestyle shift from designing spaces to reshaping people's lives. Welcome, Dima, and thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you for the lovely introduction.
You're welcome. So I wanted to start at the beginning. You studied architecture. Why did you want to become an architect?
Okay, if I was raised in Lebanon and I was born in Australia, by the way. So when we came back to Lebanon, the culture here is more of people either being architects, lawyers, or doctors. So my brother was an engineer, and I was like, yeah, okay, I have to do something related to that. So it wasn't about the passion. It was more about finding a job and being like fitting in, if I might say that. So that's how I chose architecture.
So did you feel a bit of pressure to choose that career path?
Uh, I wouldn't say pressure as much as trend. It was trendy to be an architect. So I just joined the trend.
Jumped on the bandwagon.
Yeah, like everyone, like now, my generation, you can either find a lawyer, a doctor, or an architect or engineer. So it was
Yeah.
like kind of everyone was doing it.
So did it live up to the expectations that you sort of had throughout university when you were out in the real world?
That's something I would fight for the rest of my life, because I'm not sure if it's all for all majors, but always in the university you learn something, and when you come to the workplace, it's something completely different. So you live the dream in the university, like designer, and then you arrive to the workplace, like you're like, no, you cannot dream it. No, you have to do it this way. So yeah, it was kind of a disappointment for me. Like, we always get this idea of an architect at the university, like you are the person who's going to design everything, and then you reach the real life and it's completely different.
So how disappointing is that? Because I know a few people that sort of wanting to go into architecture and are dreaming sort of big about, being the people that design things and, at the forefront of, the new future. How
Yeah,
disappointing, and how did you deal with that?
at that time in my life, I wasn't really aware of all of that. That's something that like really pushed me to change jobs. We'll talk about it later, but it's the feeling that you are somewhere where you're just there because it's available. So for me, for people who want to do architecture, I would say you need to research the places where you will be working to see, like if you are in Australia, maybe it's different, like the culture is different when it comes to architecture. So it depends on where you're living or where you're planning to work. Check what are the accomplishments when it comes to architecture. Otherwise it's going to be like a job where you draw and you execute like whatever people want. So yeah, so it
So,
depends on where you are to achieve.
so you've
Only in
actually
this world.
worked you've worked across the world. So when you moved to the different locations, were you sort of chasing projects, or did you always want to sort of work in those different locations?
No, it was more of a family condition, because my husband was having jobs wherever, like in Australia, in Dubai, in Lebanon, like wherever he went, I had to, as a family, we had to move with him, and wherever I moved, I found a job that was like available.
Right.
So this is in my architecture career.
Yes. So just sort of moving on to, I suppose, your career as a whole, I really loved looking at your LinkedIn profile because where most people list tasks that they do in a role, you list the
Yeah.
lessons learned while you're working within
Yeah.
that position. So
Yes.
what made you sort of set up your profile in that way?
Before it used to be a very traditional profile until I discovered a new perspective of life. And like the latest job I was in, I was really a very dedicated person. I did all what it takes to make sure that the owners of the company achieve their goals. So sometimes in life you need to, it's 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 a character thing. Either you stick to the rules no matter what, even if whoever told you tells you to break the rules, you just don't break the rules. Or you just like you're recruited to do to work for someone or something or whatever. If they ask you to achieve something, I'm someone, if I'm asked to achieve something, it's not breaking the rules, but it's like not going as per the normal standards, like
Hmm.
in procedures or whatever. So when I did it the way they wanted me to do it, I faced the challenge at the end. I was terminated. At some
Right.
point, I was terminated. There are a lot of politics wherever you go. But when I was terminated, I was asking for it deep inside because I had enough of organizations that did not have a culture. And I faced it that it's always the same. Organizations are not having cultures, are not having values. So it's just like, uh, it was disappointing to a point that when I went back to my LinkedIn and I said, okay, I'm not searching for a job anymore. And trust me, after that, every interview I had, I ended up being the interviewer. So I had this self-confidence inside because I had all types of experience in the construction field as a woman on site. And I was like, okay, from now on, it's not organizations that are going to choose me. I'm going to choose them. And I wanted to change the culture when it comes to CVs because I thought, like, you go into an organization, you come back, you say, okay, I've done this, that, the other. But in fact, they have affected you in a way that they should also be accountable for what they've done. So this is why I switched and I said, no, okay, now it's my turn to judge them. And these are the lessons learned from these organizations.
No, I actually love that. And when I was reading it, I actually just thought I need to change mine, to be perfectly honest, because it really needs to be, yeah, outcome driven. So it's
Yeah.
evident though that when you progress through your career, that the lessons that you learned grew more and more profound. So when I sort of went through your LinkedIn profile, the older sort of one, you sort of had a few, and then as you sort of progressed through different roles, the lessons that you were talking about became more and more profound. Do you think that came about just as a natural evolution within your career and you got older and you were able to reflect more?
It's both that, and I would add the maturity, because a lot of people would be where they are, they feel stuck. The feeling of being stuck will prevent you from learning lessons. So there's a type of maturity that people need to start being aware of. It's not only survival. We learn to survive. We learn to save the money for the future. That's all what counts for most of the people, having a future that is really secure. Here, I would say, yes, we need maybe to think of that way, but at the same time, we need to have to grow. It's not only about making money, it's about how we grow and the evolution, definitely from experiences. But again, I insist it's intentional. It cannot
Mhm.
be by chance. Like, yeah, you see people staying in their jobs for 20, 25 years, and they are still doing, maybe they are progressing in their job, but the emotional intelligence or emotional stability is not there yet. So
Yeah, so
that
they're not actually
evolution comes with
growing.
maturity. Yes,
Mm.
yes. And it's something that we need to be intentional about.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. So a few of the quotes I think that you've sort of come up with were, we can never grow when we're micromanaged, and politics
Yeah.
prevent proper sustainable growth on individual and group level. So
Yes.
have you experienced a lot of politics within your career?
Yes. Yes. And I'm a very blunt person. Even in my family, I can never use politics. It's for me that the only politic people should use is a culture and values. So everything should revolve around that.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, in the corporate world nowadays, it's more about making someone happy or being up to the expectations of someone else. And this prevents us from growing. So, and at one of of the jobs I was working with, like it was an international company, and to be honest with you, I was so excited to add value and to make a difference. But somehow, and this is very common, and that's why I put it on my profile. The manager that was managing me did not have the same level of experience I had. So every time I was about to give my opinion, not for the people, just for her or for him, to just take advantage of the money they're paying me, they wouldn't accept it, and they just want to hide it because they feel if they show that talent, I might be like promoted.
Mhm.
So that's the main reason why people micromanage. First, because they don't want a lot of talent to be shown for someone who's under them, because they feel uh, the word, they feel like offended maybe,
Threatened, yeah,
and
yeah.
they feel that they're in danger, their job is in danger. And the second thing is for sure the self-esteem. So if they cannot trust themselves, they tend to control others, and they tend to do micromanagement, which on the long run really affects the organization as a whole.
Yeah, I've had some
So yeah.
managers that definitely micromanage, and it wouldn't matter how much they're paying people, it's their way or no way, and you sort of do wonder why they even bother employing people in the first place. So,
And then you
yeah,
lose motivation. Definitely, you lose
absolutely.
motivation. Even if you are the most loyal employee, you just go. I used to like I'm a workaholic, I would say, when it comes to like if I have a due date, I'll do anything to do the job, even if I have to stay longer hours. I don't care to be paid or not. I
Mhm.
just want to achieve what I have to achieve. When you are micromanaged, you lose that. You feel that, you know what, I'm going to go on time, leave on time, that's it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that. And I'm not sure
Yeah.
how, we can get through to employers to change that behavior. And I know we'll talk about your sort of career shift in a moment, because you said that you yourself hit rock bottom. Now, what
Yes.
did you mean by that? And how did you come to that sort of realization that you were at the bottom?
uh, I came to that realization when people were talking to me, I was crying. Like
Wow.
whoever asked me, how are you? Even strangers, like not stranger, like acquaintance. If someone would come to me and say, "How are you, Dima? Are you good?" Like at the school, the school, the kids' school, I was like, I would look at them and the tears starts falling. So this
Oh,
is when I knew that there was something wrong,
mhm.
and I was trying to search for answers, what was going on, because until later, till I understood what was going on. So yes, I think at that stage, I was working as an employee. I was uh, I was a woman in architecture. In when you are in a place like Dubai or any area in the Middle East, in my opinion, a woman in construction is something not very common.
Mhm.
So I wanted to prove that a woman can do a job like man. And I'm not saying, I'm not a feminist, by the way, and I'm not someone, because I believe a woman and a man complete each other. It's not a competition. Things. This is my own I don't want to offend anyone, but that's my own opinion, that there are things physically we can do, and there are things like there's a difference. They complement each other. So for me, at that stage, being in Dubai, going on sites where I promise, I used to be in sites where there are 200, 300 men, from laborers to engineers. And I wanted to prove that, yes, I can do it. Like, it's normal. And I did it. And I did it. I was like, there was no difference. Like, it was Khadima. That's it.
Mm.
I did it on the expense of my personal life. And then I would go home and try to be the perfect mom during that time. But you're exhausted already from a 16, 18 hours job. Then you come back home and then you want to be the best. Trying to be everything at the same time wasn't working. And I didn't realize it except when I really broke down. And I think that was a verge of a depression, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
So that was like the slap, not like the bang. Let's say the bang instead of using the
Yep.
word slap. Like, you get this this bang. Like, I knew at that stage I wanted to do something about it.
So how did you pull yourself from that position? Because obviously, if you're feeling so down, and people are asking if you're okay, and you're saying you're not okay. Did people help
Yeah.
you, or did that have to come from within to get the strength to be able to
Okay.
lift yourself back up?
First of all, I tried to reach out for my psychologist back in Lebanon. It was helpful in a way, but there was a lot to be solved. So for me, I said, okay, maybe I should find someone in Dubai. And then I tried to reach out to coaches, to different type of people, and then it was too expensive to afford. So
Mhm.
that was another challenge. Like, financially, you cannot afford it. Emotionally, you're broken. You feel at some point that you cannot move forward. And that was a kind of a starting point. One of my Australian friends, Danielle, was once like, she saw in which like situation I was. She recommended her friend. She was also Australian. She's Carrie Melanie. She was doing something called the Desire Map. But to be honest with you, I did that. I squeezed myself to do it. It was a nice experience because it showed me that when you put voice to your thoughts, things change. So by sharing with a lady, I discovered that just by sharing, you already have half of the solution. So what happened after that, I opened my Instagram account and I started sharing quotes. And I started writing, and that was here also another, like, things started changing when I decided to change. And when I started writing, like, I am French educated, okay? I'm not English educated. And when I was writing in English because suddenly I remembered that I don't watch TV. I was reading all my life, like reading and reading and reading. And I think because I was in need of the information, although I thought I didn't have any information, everything started surfacing again. And the minute I'm inspired, until today, the minute I'm inspired, I just write. And this is another reason why I told you, like, I'm happy not to know what you're going to discuss with me, because for
Thank you.
me, for me, I there is something. It's like something inside. Once you hit it, and that I discovered it with my maybe depression, if I want to call it, that when I'm inspired and I'm really loving what I'm doing, it just flows. So I started writing, and when I wrote, people started contacting me for help. So again, I was like, okay, I'm crying, like my tears are falling, and people are calling me for help, that there must be something about it. And when I started helping, in a matter of half an hour or 1 hour, I was able to change their lives. And I'm talking about suicidal, I'm talking about, like, I'm talking teenagers as well. It was mind blowing for me to stop and see, like, okay, I'm being able to help everyone with no exception.
Mm.
And then I'm not being able to help myself. And this is how the journey started. So it started by me adding value to people. Through that, on a like when you pass through 1 year doing the same thing, you start seeing a pattern. So here I started gathering the, like I would go back to the chat because it wasn't a structured chat. It was each, like someone who's gambling is different than someone who lost a dear one, from someone who's in in a relationship that is not working for him. Like so many different problems. But I found out that I was following a certain feeling that led me somewhere. I gathered all the information and I put them in a book that I'm currently working over and over because I wanted to be
Wow.
a guide for people not to use anyone in their transformation.
That's fantastic. So did you see sort of like like a theme, an overarching theme with people's behaviors and, where their
Yes,
emotions were coming from?
yes, it's the conditioning from early childhood. So
Right.
whatever you see your parents doing, or whatever your parents do to you just take it and use it as a program. It's like the application on a mobile. This is your program that was parachuted into your life, and you start using it. So what happens, I think most of the people, not most, everyone had a problem coming from the childhood, from the way they were raised, and then it was manifesting in different ways. So when I discovered this, I discovered all of this alone. So I didn't know that they existed in science or in biology. It was all written in my first manuscript. It was all written like, I can feel something is like common when you are young. I can feel, I was feeling all of this. And yes, it was like everyone dealt with the same, and the solution was the same for me. So the solution is like what I shared in the book. So I can share it with you like as we go. I'll get you to understand the concept because it's easy, and this is the base of my mission. I call it a mission and not a business. I'm always torn between these two words because for me, even when I wanted it to be a business, when I switched from architecture on that time, when I hit rock bottom, and I started doing all of this, I started having this desire. Although I was still working in architecture. I always had this desire that it's not fair for anyone around the world to be upset because of mental health, because of dealing with overthinking and trying to solve things on their own. So I wanted to share a guide or something, even myself, like even now, I get a lot of people asking questions and I don't mind. And I started discovering that what I really want to do is to be sponsored to talk to people who are unfortunate to seek help.
Because you spend a lot of time helping people in your own time for free. So,
Yes. Yes.
obviously, doing that is, a very selfless act and should be commended in itself. But you were also doing that at a time where you were suffering a lot. So did you
Yeah.
find that they
Yeah.
helped you as much as you helped them, or just
Definitely. Definitely. Because at some point I was thinking that maybe the financial part is not helping me, and maybe I'm feeling distressed because of that. But when I started helping people, I saw that the most fortunate people and the most poor people were dealing with the same. So this help has helped me to see that it's not finances, it's something inside that we deal with that makes us unhappy. So it definitely healed me to see people healing. Like I tried to apply the advice I was giving, I tried to apply it on myself and it worked.
So I think that's interesting because a lot of people do associate, money with happiness. And if they don't have it, and,
Yeah.
especially at the moment with, there's a lot of people that have lost their jobs and their lifestyles due to COVID-19. And I suppose for them to be able to then
Yeah.
understand that it's not associated with money necessarily, it's something deeper
True.
within is quite
Yes, and part of what I realized and I'm experiencing right now is that it's not at all about finances, and finances will never bring you security. It's your internal balance and internal harmony that will, once elevated, will put you in an abundant stream that comes like I can tell you I've experienced something this week, and I'm going to share it with you so you understand what I mean. You know, the pandemic, you know how all of us are being affected by this. But one
Absolutely.
instance for me is I started my new job, like my career switch to personal development and helping and all of that. At the same time, my husband started a new job. He moved to Saudi Arabia. Like everything was already not happening. I had so many pandemics in my life. I had so many Corona style, Corona style. So I'm protected from the consequences of this. So recently, just recently, my husband lost his job. Maybe while after we talked, all of this happened. So my husband lost his job in Saudi Arabia. He had to, like, he had no choice because at this stage it's just everywhere. It's messed up, except for Australia. Like for us, it's like we've always wanted to go back, but we were like waiting for the right time. So my husband decided on like 2 weeks ago to just go back, and I'll have to go back. But like everything is happening, no income, nothing. Like we are in this position. Then I like we had a small debt, and now the money here is changing. The exchange like is crazy. So we were told that if you close it now, like it's half, minimum half of what we were paying. So we had to do that effort. And I was like, I stood there like no income, trying to get all this money. And I don't know how to sustain myself. Then I remembered like, okay, fine, let it go. Out of nowhere, I got a call from a person who is making like a video, like a movie style scene around us. And they wanted an apartment for 6 days. They wanted to rent an apartment for 6 days. And I was like, I looked and I'm like, you see, and I was telling everyone around me, I said, you see, like sometimes in life, it's always about your attitude. It's not about the economy. It's not about your job. The security is not there. The security is in your head. The minute you kneel just because you don't have it, that's it. You went into the lower stream, which is for me is the stream of scarcity and misfortune. The more you take off your back, you flow, and the higher you flow, you go into an abundant stream and become synchronized. Like things, like this is one example. I can tell you every single day I have something happening in my life just because I changed the way I think.
So where did you, so obviously this comes back to a lot of the quotes that you started putting on your social media accounts. How did you find that inspiration to be able to put out such a positive message? Like, where does that positivity come from? I know it perpetuates as you sort of go on, the more positive you are, the more positive you can be. But where did it come from originally? Was it just because you wanted to be in a positive place?
Okay, so I started writing, right? Before I was taking quotes from people, I was borrowing and captioning it.
Mm-hmm.
As I was going and helping, it's a kind of awareness. You start being aware. So it's a process to reach that. You start by being aware of what's going on around you. You can see yourself acting sometimes not right, but through helping people, I started realizing learning lessons. And also with my experience, I started doing my own quotes. When I was doing my own quotes, these were really lessons for me. And a lot of people, you can't imagine how many people reached out for me and say, oh my God, you're sending this quote for me today. So through that, if you look at on Instagram at the dates of my quotes, you will see it's a 4 year continuous process of always digging in, trying to help. And yes, it was awareness first. Then it was learning, like facing the reality of life. So for me, the start and the end of life, this is very important. Now the pandemic, why people are why people stopped, why people were so afraid, because they were afraid of the death. They were afraid of the end. For me, at that stage, 3 years ago, I faced it that, okay, come on, why we're running backwards when we know that it's going to happen? And I had relatives who lost their babies. I've seen people lost a 3-year-old or 4-year-old, a 10-year-old. Then you look and you see that it's not about the age, it's not about the social level, it's not about the culture. It will hit anytime. So for me, being depressed, being like at the bottom, and realizing this, it was a big thing for me, especially that I'm a believer. Like, because of life, you lose your spirituality at some point. For me, I lost it for some time, but then again, what happened is, okay, I started loving myself. I started being in peace with my past. I started being grateful, and I started being mindful. These are for me at that stage. Were the only, like, these were the recipe for a happy life. Love yourself, be grateful every day, and then be mindful. Okay, that's fine. I was applying all of this, but there was always something missing, because life will throw you with things that are really, really hard. And doing exercising all of this, I stood and I was writing. This is when I started writing the book. And I'm like, okay, life starts at some point, ends at some point. There are things we can control, is only ourselves, like our attitude towards life, things like that. But what about the things that we cannot control? And here I'm like, okay, if I want to say someone or something is controlling the whole world, I would be saying, oh, so he's bad or she's bad, because there are good things happening and bad things happening. So here I said, okay, that's it. Life is life. It is about the ups and downs. And there is a power where you can rely on to make it easier on yourself. So this is how I started using my faith. And I use my faith, and I have a power holding my hand, and I'm walking with that power every single day and saying, you know what? Okay, if this exists, and I believe it does, but I'm not saying everyone should, like each person has his own system. But for me, it was like a race at that stage when I realized that life is like that. It's not good or bad, it's convenient and inconvenient, because when we are sick, we go to the doctor get paid. So I cannot say positive, negative. I can say more convenient, inconvenient. Then if this is life, okay, then I need to deal with it with this power. So I said, and this power is at the end. If I believe there's a power, then at the end I have a meeting with someone or I don't know, there is for me. And it helped me a lot, to be honest. It was a race between the time to leave and my current situation. And at that stage, I was sad. I was crying. And I'm like, this life was given to us as a gift, like it's a white paper. And if I die now, I'm going to face a source that's going to tell me, like, did you enjoy the ride? And I'm like, no, it was a mess. So I did not want to reach a place where I am in a regret that, no, I didn't do anything except for crying, overthinking, not loving where I am, all of this. So that was the really starting point. And for me, it was the 29th of August, 2017.
Wow. So that's embedded in your brain.
Yes, because it was so intentional that I said, listen, I looked to God and I said, listen, I'm going to give you a chance in my life. If you want, like, I'm going to give you only like a hairline in my door. I promise. This is how I tackled it. And that night I said, no matter what happened, because we were stuck. I was like, I had a contractual job at that time. My husband lost his job. The kids' schools were to be paid. The rent was to be paid, and we couldn't take the risk. So I needed answers, and I couldn't do anything. And I said, no matter what happened, no matter what solution I'll get, I'll not overthink. And that's what happened. From that day onward, every problem that came my way, I said, take it. You give me the answer. And now, like, I'm not going to go into all the dates, but it was on the 14th of September, that same month, that I looked at my kids' passport. They were expiring the next day. So I didn't have any choice except to leave, to get them to go and stay behind. So
Mhm.
even at that point, for a mom that was dedicated all her life to tell my husband, you know what, take them and I'll follow. And I promised myself that no, I'm not going to regret that and I'm going to live with it. And I stayed for 1 year. We were supposed to go to Australia, but then my work got back to track because of that way of thinking. And things just like started getting clearer and clearer. So it's a process. It's a process to change, to reach positivity, but it has so many things that come into play. And it's like any other growth, natural growth, like a seed, you plant it, you doubt it, you're not seeing that it's going to sprout. So you go into doubt, but the belief in the invisible, like, you put a seed of apple, you know that the apple will come,
Mm.
but you can't see the apple, you can't see anything, you see the soil. So this is very important, to believe in the invisible in order to stay motivated and know what to do.
So do you think that you could have been able to do this when you were younger, or did you think that you needed to go through the things that you went through to be
Yes,
able to get to that place?
true. And I don't regret it. I
Mm.
really needed that. I really needed every single part, because if I look back, trust me, it's every single challenge came with an equal advantage.
Mm.
That's James Allen says this, that it's very true. Now I can see it really well, that as I was going, every single thing that I faced, I learned a lesson from. And now when I recall that, I see, wow, this is what happened. This is the lesson learned. So yes, it was because of the experiences that I reached that point in my life, and I wouldn't change it.
So it's come about from a lot of reflection rather than, yeah, because you don't see it at the time.
Yes, yes. Like now, with my kids, for example, I would tell you, I wouldn't let them go through the same, because already I learned the lesson. Let them learn new lessons. So what I do with them, I try to get them to live the moment. I allow them to make mistakes, but before they make the mistakes, I say, listen, if you do this, if you decide to do this, if you decide to eat junk all the time, this is the law of cause and effect. You're gonna be unhealthy. You're gonna feel that you cannot think. You're gonna feel that you're lazy. You're gonna feel. So I give them that, and sometimes they don't listen. Sometimes they listen. I don't micromanage them. I just give them. I just give them the lesson. I tell them how I learned it, and then as they go, the thing is, the most important is the awareness.
Mm.
When you tell someone, it's good because you get them to be aware, but you need to be very careful how to tell them.
Yeah, definitely. I think as well as
Yeah.
parents, it's very hard to, to not micromanage and to let them make their own mistakes. So have you found that really challenging?
Ah, no, I'll tell you why. Because I'm surrounded with parents that micromanage, and it breaks my heart. Like I can cry to see a child being abused unintentionally. The problem is that parents, because they want to do the best for their children, they do sometimes things to teach them lessons in a very, they think like, punishment, for example. People think that punishment is good because it will teach the child a lesson. For me, no, all what you're doing is you're getting the child to be afraid of the consequences rather than raising the child awareness that, if come on, like if you do that, you're going to get that. For example, I was talking to my nephew the other day, and he's not brushing his teeth, let's say. So instead of telling him you have to or whatever, I said, you know what, you're going to kiss your girlfriend in some time, and if you're gonna have a lot of bad things in your mouth, it's not gonna be a nice experience. So when you give them that visualization.
Mm.
They live the emotion and they really try to do their best not to reach that, you know, instead of feeling guilty because he's my son. Let's say he's my godson. Like, oh my God, look at people will judge him. I will never say people will judge you. I'll say like this is very, very, very delicate, and parenting, like for me now, I enjoy it because I don't use these anymore. It's getting over ourselves.
Mm.
Parenting is getting over our ego. It's getting over like I said so. It's not about I said so. It's not about like a child would ask why I cannot do this because I said so. No, it's our responsibility to tell them that yes, that, okay, why you're smoking if I cannot smoke? That's one thing that the child would do. And say, no, you cannot smoke. I'm older. No, that's not like,
Mm.
there are a lot of things that we as parents are not doing as role models, but we want our children to do it.
Yeah,
So we need
definitely.
to start with ourselves in parenting.
I couldn't agree more. I think I'm a bit of a micromanager parent, so we might have to chat a bit more about that later.
Yeah, I'm here.
Now, you've said that you've gone from designing spaces to reshaping people's lives.
Yes,
Obviously, we've chatted about,
yes.
parenting and the people that you've spoken to, but how have you moved that forward into making that your sort of career and how you want to live your life for, the near future at least?
It's all about the experience I had. Like since I started working, first I worked as a freelance. I was doing jobs alone. I was doing everything, and then I moved into the corporate. I've really realized something. Wherever I went, people were not happy where they were, and I managed without knowing that this is going to be at one stage my passion. Wherever I went, I created this team spirit. So I was, even though the owners were not really people of integrity, I would say, I would thrive just to build a team. And up until today, the people I worked with, if you see the messages they send me, how I affected their life, and I love it because I feel that those young people, if they were stuck under a micromanager, it would have been a completely different future. So, well, when I realized all of this through especially in corporate, especially when I was an employee, seeing that gap, it's a huge gap because again, money is the main player. Imagine that a company would only focus about the return on investment when it comes to money, okay?
Mm.
But they fail to see that the face of an organization are the employees. So if you are the employee and you're not happy and satisfied where you are, no matter what you do, no matter like even if you're gonna put that face, the people think that if I show people that I'm happy, that's it. I'm fine. I'm gonna get away with it. You can never get away with it because part of what I do is I teach about the vibes, and it's true. Like we are energy. We are volts even. Like even by science, it's proved that we are. If I can say so, we are 50 trillion cells, something around that, and each cell is 1.4 volts. So we're around 70 trillion volts, like moving. And every time we are in conflict, every time you have your personal life not going right, your corporate life is right. You go into a meeting, that's where people say, oh, that person is charismatic, that person is close, that person is, oh, I cannot not stand that person. Some people from the door, before you even talk to them, you feel their attitude.
Mm.
And that's very important in an organization, that the investment is not only about the money, it's about the people. Because when you take care of your people, when you make sure that the people are really good, are feeling well, in the old days, they would tell the employee, put your problems at the door and come in. Nowadays, you have your phone with you. You're connected 24 hours. You're connected every single minute. If anything happens in your house, If your spouse is not happy, if your partner is not happy, if your child is sick, it's affecting you. So for me, nowadays, organizations should invest in how to raise the emotional stability of employees, how to get them to be mature. I recently called it the SMILE method, which is to reach a sustainable transformation through maturity, through intentionality, through lightheartedness and emotional intelligence. So when your employees have this, like they're gonna shine wherever they go. They're gonna get the business. They're gonna Your profits are gonna be more. The productivity is gonna be more. So it will affect everything. So for me, it was more of, yes, I was an architect, and it was I would not regret not like doing that major, because it helped me shape the way I'm thinking. But now I can see how important it is to build people, to help people stand on strong basis in order for them to make a difference wherever they go.
So
So
you
that's
go into
it.
organizations and you know, obviously implement this SMILE technique and you work with them to improve employee well-being. How well
Yes, and I
received is it?
sorry.
How well received is that from management, especially those
Okay.
types that do like the micromanaging? You know, do you have much resistance?
Yeah, I'll tell you and this is we go back to the mission and business. When I first started, I had a big problem taking money from people. Up until today, I think there are cases where I really feel I want to give. So I got the business from those people. So I was helping HR directors, I was helping CEOs. And when I help them on a personal level, which is for me, there's no executive coaching. There is coaching, there is mentoring. You hold the person and you cover everything in their lives to get them to reach that peace, because we all need peace, we all need meaning in our lives. So when I help them, they already experience the results of what I do. So that's how I got recruited for business consultancy, because people were really experiencing the results that they want to see it on their employees. And when I go, yes, there are people that resist for some time, but I use a very non-traditional way. I always start any business deal with offering that the first session is always a talk about life, a talk about the challenges of life. I tell, if you go and do a training for leadership, the people will only retain 1%, because they are already dealing with so many things. And by science and by biology, we are 95% guided by our subconscious mind, which is a habitual mind. So even if you go and talk to 5% of the creative mind we have, or the consciousness, it will not last long. It's exactly, when you decide to stop smoking, for example, you are aware and your creative mind is telling you it's not good for you, just let it go. The minute you see a cigarette without noticing, you take one, you smoke, and then you realize that you broke your deal. Why? Because it's 95%. So for me, trainings these days, it will work. Yeah, okay, you spend money on training, but for me, no. It's more working on the person, get the person to be peaceful, get the person to be emotionally stable and mature and aware of what's going on, and then start investing in training and skills. So you get resistant, but after the first session I do, and I talk like exactly what we're talking about right now, that's what I do. People start seeing, by applying small things in their lives, they see the difference. And the first deal I got was, I was asked to go and do this, okay, this talk, and that's it. I got paid for it, for the tickets, for everything. The minute I came back, I got a call. They said, we cannot express what happened to the whole group. Like, they were dealing with a lot of issues, a lot of ego problems. People were really like working on their own. They didn't care about anyone else. So they said, you know what? We want you to come back and help us try to start a culture, values, and I ended up going to the same company 8 times in a row.
Wow.
Just I created like an evaluation of 360 degrees. I got the people to, normally you only care that your manager is happy, and the people around you, you don't care about them. You just do whatever you want to do, and that's it. Khalas, you're recognized from the big guy
Mm.
or big girl. So what happened? So what happened is when you give people to evaluate people around them, under them, and on top of them. Imagine I had with me around 1,500 papers I had to go through from
Wow.
the evaluation. So after 8 times, I was able to depict the corruption, the problems, and that's how I started with business consultancy, like creating a whole thing. But it's completely new. It's not common. I don't use anything from someone.
No, you're very non-traditional, which I love. I think it's fantastic because, we see so much of the traditional, you must do this way, you must do it that way. And I have to say,
Yeah,
you do have a very warm heart, and you make people feel good because, we had a chat on Zoom a few weeks ago, and because we'd
yeah.
never met before, and I got off the Zoom call and I just went, she just made me feel really good. Like, I feel
That's nice.
I feel happy after speaking to this person, like, why is that? So, I think it's absolutely amazing what you do. And I know that you'd be making a huge amount of difference to every organization and person that you interact with. So I do have to
Yeah,
ask you though,
yeah,
what's next for you? Like, you're coming back to Australia. What's the next step for Dima?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I am. That's another lesson I learned in life. Like I was born in Australia. My parents decided to come back to Lebanon. I was raised in Lebanon. Then this is the dilemma of everyone around the world. I wasn't happy where I am. I wanted to explore something else. The country is not good, blah, 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 blah. I went to Australia and lived for like 6 years, during which I was like, I got married and I had kids. And I was all the time complaining. I like my family is not there, my direct family is not there, I don't have help, blah. Again, excuses. I come back to Lebanon, we start a business, the economic situation, the political situation. I'm like, oh, no, 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 no. I have a family, but I don't have the stability. Then we went to Dubai. The same thing. There was always something missing in my life, and I was always finding an excuse not to be happy.
Mm.
Until recently, like when I switched careers, and that's why I switched careers, and I came back to Lebanon, and I always between Lebanon and Dubai. This is where I realized it's not about the country, it's not about the situation, it's not about the pandemic or not. It's about who you are. It's about the deep you, the like it's you. And when we talk, when I say I'm not traditional, yes, and I want to promote that people stop looking for answers outside of them. They go and imitate someone on LinkedIn. They go and imitate someone on Instagram. And people start creating those programs where they want you to look like everyone else. And we just because we learned to be valid, we want the validation, we want the recognition, we want the likes and the comments, and this is where I tell everyone, stop. Stop and search for meaning first. Try to find peace from within first, and that's it. Once you do so, everything will flow. Everything will flow.
I believe that too. I think, far too much that, everybody's reliant upon social media and the validation that they get from others rather than the validation that they actually get from themselves.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
think that's,
The
it's a
self-love.
valuable lesson. Absolutely. Yeah. Self-love.
That's self-love.
Absolutely.
Like, and people would come and say self-love, but it's selfishness. I say no, it's not
Mm.
selfishness. Self-love is just looking at you,
Mm.
appreciating who you are, and satisfying that. The hostess in the plane when they tell us, put your oxygen first and then help your children. We tend to help people around us before we look at ourselves because we think we don't want to be selfish.
Mm.
No, self love is doing what it takes to maintain yourself. And this is something I never did. And this is what made me hit rock bottom, because I was taking care of my family, of my job, of the finances, like, but that's it. I didn't do what it takes for me to maintain myself. This car that needs the petrol and oil and everything, we just leave it. Yalla, that's it. It'll go.
So I think we're on the same page that, we don't believe necessarily in regrets. But if there was one thing that you could do differently, what would you do differently if only you knew?
Oh, wow, that's it. What I would do differently, it's not about regret. Maybe what I'm doing to my kids right now is like now, before I not screwed up, but somehow yes, because I didn't know that our kids, we are really designing the generations by starting from our kids. So at some point, I wasn't really I maybe gave them some programs that are not good. If I only knew that children take everything as it is, I would have only changed this, the program that I upload to them. But now I'm unloading and uploading again.
Well, it's better to
Yeah.
learn a lesson than to never learn it at all. So
Exactly.
Definitely.
That's it. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today, Dima. I've really enjoyed it, and I can't wait
always
to
enjoy
see
it.
you when you come to Australia.
Oh,
You'll have to
yeah.
research.
Thank you so
Definitely.
much for your time, and I really appreciate it as well.
No worries. If you would like to know more about Dima, you can follow her on all of the socials at Dima Istanbuli, and her full bio will be available on our website, ifonlyyouKnewpodcast.com.au, and be sure to check it out. Thanks, Dima.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. For more information about our guests or our show, visit ifonlyyouKnewpodcast.com.au.